Hi, Larry the editor here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. The first couple of segments of this video, the format's going to be a little bit weird because they were portrait off my phone because they were pulled from shorts. But I wanted to give you a complete view of this particular process of the instrument cluster refresh and restoration. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Hope you enjoy.
I came up with a solution on an issue that is very promising and is going to allow me to take care of one of the things I wanted to. It's relating to the gauges. I'm going to be using an American Auto Wire wiring harness on this car, but however, as I've spoken in the past, I want the Mustang to appear the way it did in 1966 with a few upgrades such as the disc brakes and everything. That meant using the stock gauge cluster. The problem is all modern wiring harnesses use voltmeters, not ammeters. And the reason for that is when cars transition from generators to alternators, and in the case of the Mustang, that happened in 1965, ammeters became less reliable, and actually with the higher currents that alternators generate, become a bit of a fire hazard. So in general, cars switched over to voltmeters. This is a stock 1966 cluster, which came with the Mustang. Standard 5-gauge outlet, and it does have an ammeter as opposed to a voltmeter. Now the question is how do I use this cluster but include a voltmeter instead of the ammeter? Well, I've got a solution that I'm going to be doing. Found a company that's going to be that has the ability to convert this to a volt gauge and maintain the stock appearance. So in my next couple of videos, you're going to see me restore and totally refurbish this gauge cluster with a voltmeter instead of the amp gauge. How did I learn this? Simple Google search, and I found a guy with a YouTube video that has all the information on it, which I will share a link in the appropriate video when I get ready to release that. Underway. I started disassembling the cluster yesterday. This is what the amp gauge I'm dealing with is. Standard 1966 amperes gauge. I'm going to have this converted to read volts, and it'll look a little bit differently. Here's a photo of what it will look like. This particular video, I'm shooting several long-form videos simultaneously right now, but this particular video is going to be some time to development because I am sending this gauge off today, but the turnaround time to get it converted and sent back to me is about 6 to 8 weeks. So it will be a little bit of time before the actual full-length video of this conversion is ongoing. I've decided also to go ahead and replace all the other gauges. They're 60 years old, got some rust in them, speedometer seized up. It's actually more affordable and just more cost effective just to replace all of them to make sure everything works nice and neat. This gauge cluster is going to be performed by Rocketman's Cougar, Classic Cougar Innovations LLC. And I'll have the information on the long form video down in the description when the time comes to give you all the information on this if you want to have this done on your classic Mustang. This is actually part of my gauge cluster that I'm disassembling. This is, if we can read the instructions here, this is a solid state instrument cluster voltage regulator. This gauge cluster, it was already missing, so that is also going to be replaced. I've been breaking down the gauge cluster on the 66 Mustang, and I've discovered basically I've got a lot of replacement parts to do. And other than that, everything seems to be in decent shape. This is the back of the cluster right here. I've got to clean up that rust right there, and I'm actually going to paint this a paint that as closely matches the standard metal to make it look nice and neat. The gauges that I have, the speedometer is frozen. I've tested the other gauges. They are dead, and as a matter of fact, the fuel gauge came apart on me as I was trying to remove it, so those need to be replaced. The bezel, of course, is plastic. It's going to be replaced, as are the lenses. Those will look nice and neat. This right here, I'm going to clean up the rust on it, paint it back black, and then we will get about the task of restoring this gauge cluster. The amp gauge has been sent off to the company that I mentioned in the previous videos to get it converted to a volt meter. So, you may ask, what's the point in spending all the money replacing all the gauges in that cluster when I'm really only saving the case and nothing else? Well, it's actually pretty simple. When you consider how much a Dakota Digital gauge panel, which I've used in the past, is, about $800, or something like that, which is anywhere from $550 at the absolute cheapest for a digital gauge cluster that I don't like, up to a ridiculous amount even beyond the Dakota Digital. I'm going to have about $350, $400 in a brand new stock gauge cluster that is going to have the look I want and do everything that I want. So it's kind of a no-brainer. Well, here we are a few months later, and it has arrived. Let's see what we have here. Packing slip, packing materials, and we have a box. Let's take this out. Now this is supposed to be the same gauge that I sent off to RCC Innovations, and let's see what it looks like. And there we have a freshly restored and brand new volt gauge, replacing the amp gauge that I sent off. Quality looks exquisitely good. Everything looks wonderful. Can't wait to try it out. Looking at this a little bit closer, they added this coil of wire at the top. Inside we've got a couple of resistors, but it still hooks up the same way the original one does, with the new facing on it registering volts instead of amps. And just to reiterate some of the stuff I've already gotten for this, I'm acquiring parts for this gauge reconstruction, this gauge cluster reconstruction slowly. This right here, of course, is the solid-state instrument cluster voltage regulator. That is good to go. And I have also acquired this. I discovered that I had a $100 Walmart gift card that I had gotten over a year ago that I had never used. So I got on Walmart's website and ordered this. This is from Speed Shop. This is the fuel gauge. So I've got the fuel gauge, the converted volt gauge, and the voltage regulator for the cluster. You gotta love new stuff. Go ahead and get this open here. And what do we have? Well, get the packing material off of it. Hey! A brand new bezel for the instrument cluster. This is from Kentucky Mustang. It's a Scott Drake part. Scott Drake's taken some hits by people because they argue that their quality has gone downhill lately, but this looks really, really nice. So with this, I have the all the panels with the exception of the lenses. The lenses I've still got to get. I've got the converted amp gauge to the volt gauge. I've got a fuel gauge. And of course, I've got all the backing material. I've still got the speedometer, the oil pressure, and the water temp gauge to get, and the lens for this, as well as the little filters for the dash lights. I have everything assembled here to restore the instrument cluster. If you recall, the other stuff, all of these gauges were bad. Old temp gauge, old oil pressure gauge, dead. Lens definitely has seen better days. Bezel, yeah, we're not keeping that. Now, speedometer, completely locked up, seized, and worthless. Fuel gauge doesn't work and is in fact broken. And if you remember, the amp gauge has been converted to a volt gauge. I have all my gauges. I have all my materials. I'm going to reuse the filters. Yes, they've got a little bit of scarring from the previous bulbs, but these will work just fine. I'm going to super glue those into place after I clean everything up. But the first thing we got to do is clean this up, get a coat of paint on it, clean this up completely, get the rust knocked off the back of it, then we can get started. Let's go. Got a hold of this with brake clean, strip all the old paint, get the rust off of it, clean this up. I'm going to go back over it with my rust encapsulating paint, or primer rather, let that sit, and then I'm going to go ahead and repaint this. Knock the scale off of it, encapsulate it, and paint it. Alright, what I've got here is this is the back panel. This was originally bare metal. It had been rusted just a little bit. I did do some checking. Since these are insulated, you don't have to worry about not painting it. There's no reason for Ford not to paint it other than to save costs. So I went ahead and painted it, and I used the same paint that I painted the tie rods and other items that I wanted to look bare metal, just to give it that stock look. It's not 100% perfect. There's a little bit of flaking where the rust was, but the rust has been encapsulated. It's good to go. Now what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install the filters for the light bulbs. And since these are clipped on from the factory and you have to basically break the tabs off to get them off, I'm going to super glue them back into place. So we're going to flip this over. First thing I want to do is I'm going to come in here with a rag and I'm going to clean this up a little bit, brush this dirt and stuff out of here. Get that nice and clean. That way we've got a clean surface to work with. Chances are some of this dirt has been in there since 1966. Now obviously the lighting filters go in these four positions here. And I need to be very careful because my usual thing with super glue is I end up getting it all over me and gluing my fingers to the wall of the house. So I want to be sure and not do that. A little bit goes a long way. Just going to place some on the tabs. Trick is to get it to flow without getting it to flow too much. There it is. There and there. Put that in position and do the same 3 more times.
Hold those in place. First thing I'm going to do is seal this up so this doesn't dry on me. Hold those into place until they're adhesed, then do the others. This one's not wanting to stick. I'll add a little bit more. Glue might have dried on me before I had a chance to do anything with it. There we go. And if for some reason this doesn't work, it's very easy just to pop this back apart, pop these out, and put the new filters in. It's not a big deal to take this apart. Does not take long for this stuff to set up at all. See how nimble my fingers are to get this back on. Okay, those are set up pretty good. I can start putting on the gauges now. And I've got my small socket right here, my little AutoZone version Duralast small handle socket, so I make sure I don't go totally gorilla and torque this down too much. And I'm going to follow this right here because this is a nice diagram as to which gauges go where. Because I'm stupid and forgot to check on that. So first we're going to put in the fuel gauge, which is this right here. Now all of these, with the exception of the volt gauge, which is my old gauge I had converted, come with new insulators. I'm going to use one of the old insulators for that gauge. And just for general purposes, the Scott Drake gauges, which this is a Scott Drake gauge, was $94. It's about what they were a piece with the exception of the speedometer, which is more. Summit has their brand of gauges, which the temp gauge and oil pressure gauge are the Summit brand. I can tell absolutely no difference in quality or anything between the two. I have a feeling they're the same damn gauge. Don't quote me on that. I have no proof of that. It's just a feeling I have. And just so you know, where these are 90, the Summit brands were 65. There's the new insulator. See, we have insulators on the back of this already. These clip down just like that, fit into place, put the new insulator on, and the nuts. Very simple operation. And again, I'm just going to put these finger tight. They don't have to be torqued down. If you torque them down, you'll break the gauge, which I've seen happen to more than one person. repeat that step again on the next one. The next one being the oil pressure gauge. Again, comes with a new insulator. Fits in between that. Turn it over. Put on the insulator and the nuts. I'm going to skip the speedometer for now, move on to the converted volt gauge. And of course, it's a different size, got to get a different wrench. The aftermarket gauges come with 5/16 nuts. This is the original nut that came on the gauges, which is a 3/8. So if I ever go back into these, I have to remind myself of that. This one has the internal insulator, does not have the external insulator, so I'm just going to use one of the old ones. And for the small gauges, last but not least, the water temp gauge. Later on, as we're working on this car, you'll see me get to wire all of this up once I obtain the American Auto Wire complete aftermarket wiring system. I can go with stock wiring on this car, but the American Auto Wire enables you to run a more powerful alternator, 13-14 amp alternator versus the original, and it also allows you some extra circuits in case you want to add anything in the future, but it uses all of the stock switches, which is real handy. And honestly, there's not really a difference in cost. Alright, with that we've got all in, now it's time for the speedometer. And I'm probably going to have to reuse the screws from that, which they don't look great, but they'll do just fine. I do have to go get a screwdriver for that. Actually, no. Looks like it comes with the screws. Very handy. Kudos to whoever did this, which I believe this is a Summit speedometer. Kudos to them, because what that means is I don't have to worry about the old hardware. Of course, this screwdriver is a little bit too big for it. Let me go get a smaller one. Okay, with that, we have the gauges installed. Before I go any further, I'm going to install one more thing. Gently put these on its face, not to damage the gauges, because we have to install the voltage regulator, which goes right about here. Using a standard sheet metal screw, it looks like, and I don't know if I've got one here. Let me see what I can find. This one may be a little bit too big, but I'll see. Nope, that's going to work just fine. Not the correct screw, but it will work, and that's what we look for. Now this can be bent up a little bit so it does not interfere with that. Let me go get me some pliers. Like so. That is in. Now we can turn this back over. And continue. Alright, this is a little bit of a balancing act here, because what I have to do is I have to put these cardboard pieces in here, then put that on top of it, and then flip it over with the bezel in place, because the bezel is what the screws screw into. Pretty. are the cardboard pieces that direct the signal lights. Then this fits over the top of that, like so. Make sure those are lined up as best you can. You can come in here and move them around just a little bit just to make sure everything's kosher. Then this goes over the top of that like so. But before we do that, we need the lens. Dude. I'm not sponsored by Kentucky Mustang, but I wanted to give a shout out to those guys because they don't do business the way other places do, CJ Pony Parts, because if they don't have the part in, they tell me at the day that it's ordered. One of the reasons I'm stopping on the floors is because I'm still waiting on the driver's side seat mount for the floors, which when I ordered it, CJ told me it would be in about a week. We're now at a month and they've pushed it back 4 times. Now it won't be shipped until late January. If you don't have the parts, guys, just tell me up front and maybe I can find it somewhere else, you know what I mean? I guess that's what they don't want though. All right. Now this goes in here like this, or like this maybe, yeah, like that. Get this to fit into place. Then this slides in this way. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it this way. And then slide it into place like so. Flip it over and screw everything in. Probably doesn't matter, but I like to install these in a pattern from the inside out. Seems to seat a little better if you do it that way. Now I'm using the original hardware for this. Nothing wrong with reusing screws. But essentially all I used from the original cluster was the original mounts, the 2 pieces that you saw me paint, and the filters. Everything else is brand new. And the cool thing is I have about $300 in a brand new cluster, whereas buying a Dakota Digital, which I have done in the past, and I do like Dakota Digital, but that's $800–900. And it doesn't have the stock look that I'm going for on this car, so I'm very happy with it going this route. And just like that, we have a completely restored and brand new instrument cluster with a volt gauge instead of the amp gauge. Not too shabby if I say so myself. Just to reiterate how nice this looks, everything is good to go, brand new. Love how that volt gauge looks, fits right in there with the rest of the theme of the car. Looks like 1966 parts. Backside, everything's brand new with the exception of those filters. Like I said, if I want to replace those, I will. I was missing one screw right there. These little black screws right there. I can find one at a later date. That is no problem. It is secure and fastened together very well. Now it's just a question of getting ready to box this up in a nice clean box, put it aside, and when I'm ready, it will be ready. Well, let me get this elevated just a little bit so I don't look completely ridiculous. I want to thank you for joining me for this. Yet another one of the small things that you have to do to get these things back up and running. I'm happy with that. I like that a lot. And like I said, it's a fraction of the cost of an aftermarket digital gauge system, and it'll do everything I want it to do, and it's more true to what I'm looking for to do in this particular car. So what do we have coming up next? Well, I'm in the middle of doing body work on the Cobra. I'm addressing the doors, the drop in the doors where they meet the front of the body, which is a standard problem with Hurricane Cobras. So I'm building up using kitty hair fiberglass filler. It's long strand fiberglass in resin, so it's essentially like putting another layer of fiberglass on top of it. I put that in, got it roughly in place, then I'm going back with regular skimming body filler to smooth it out. I had to go on a little bit thick on that. I'm waiting for it to dry and do more body work, so I'll have a body work video coming out very soon as well for the Cobra. As far as the Mustang goes, we're going to be getting ready to doing the passenger side floor. I may not record that because it's the same process as the one that I've already released, and I don't want to have to subject you to more of my cussing and more cutting and everything of that nature. I will post a video when I get ready to put the seat risers in if CJ Pony Parts ever gets the parts to me, and I may do that. I also have to cut out the area around the radio, which reminds me, I failed to mention, like all typical 66 cars or old cars like this, over time people hack up the dashboard putting in aftermarket radios. So I've got a patch panel that I'm going to put in and restore the original radio opening for that. And my plan is this, very simply, I went on eBay and for 45 bucks came up with a stock AM radio for a 66 Mustang. Now the cool thing about this is whether this works or not, the guy said it works, I don't know if it does or not, doesn't matter. My plans for this is I've got a company that restores classic car radios, but what they do is they convert them to AM FM and Bluetooth capability, but it maintains the look of a 1966 piece. So I get all the convenience of new stuff while maintaining the look of the old stuff. 45 bucks on eBay, another 200 bucks to get this thing converted over. I'm going to like that. I'll release a video series on that as well. But that's the story on the cluster. I'm going to box it up, put it on the shelf, have it ready to go when I get ready to wire this thing. This is something that is well into the future, but I had a chance to capitalize on this pretty quickly, so I wanted to go ahead and get this done. Hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure and hit like and subscribe if you like the content and all of that jazz. Got more Cobra bodywork stuff coming up. I've been knee deep in dust on this thing for several days now, filming this, and we're almost there, so be sure and stick around for that. Thanks.